Yeah, like with the Jennifer Coe piece, a lot of it was like, and you have to really do it with your whole body or else it doesn't come through. And it's funny, actually, sometimes I take like the physicality of like my fingers or like how I play onto their instrument in some way. And I didn't realize how particular it was. Like had, like doing this on the violin, like it's like it was like very particular to me actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it does get in there, and like I like to play with like breath a lot, because when you breathe a certain way, your body moves a certain way, right? Like you take a really deep breath and then you exhale it. So then just things like that I'll play with, and then it's like, how does that move your arm? Like if you hold your bow arm still, but you're breathing a certain way, like your whole torso goes up and down, and like what's this resulting sound of that?
This is Music Maker with Tyler Kline, a podcast from Loose Leaf Transmissions. Hey there, y'all, and welcome to another edition of the podcast. If you are new here, my name is Tyler. I'm a composer, a broadcaster, producer. I wear a lot of different hats. I love to make things, and I love to talk with other creative people about how they make their work and what keeps them creating. And if you have been listening for a while, well, welcome back. It's so great to have you. Today, I'm joined by composer, pianist, and choreographer Sugar Vendil. Sugar's practice lives where sound and movement meet. After starting as a classical pianist, she spent years searching for her own voice, and now writes and performs music that integrates piano, electronics, and the body. She co-leads Vanity Project, a keyboard synth duo with Trevor Gureckis, and she's developing a project called Antonym, the opposite of nostalgia, supported by NPN Creation Fund and MAPFund, as well as co-commissioned by Living Arts Tulsa, High Concept Labs, and National Sawdust. In our conversation, we talk about how a kinesthetic, improvisatory approach shapes her compositions, the quote-unquote new virtuosity that she's cultivating at the piano, and how identity and agency guide an interdisciplinary practice. We also get into the seeds of Antonym, the collaborative processes that animate her work, and why she prefers the slower, deeper connection to a newsletter over social media. The conversation begins in just a moment. This show grows because of people like you, not some algorithm. So if something in today's conversation sparks something for you, the best way to support it is to follow the podcast and to share it with someone who'd get it too. You'll find links to subscribe, follow us on Instagram, or support on Patreon, all in the show notes or at looseleaftransmissions.com. Now, on to my conversation with Sugar Vendil. Well, Sugar, I just want to start off by saying how excited I am that we have the chance to sit down for the podcast. And I think I mentioned something to you in our email correspondences about how you have just crafted this wealth of information on your site about yourself and your artistic ethos, which has been a great thing to dive into. And I'm sure we'll be covering a lot of ground today. But it also made it a bit overwhelming to write and organize my questions for you because everything seems so like interconnected in this really wonderful way. So definitely a great problem to have since your artistry manifests in so many different ways.
I don't know, is it?
I'm excited. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this conversation leads us. And just thanks so much for joining me.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
So where we like to begin on Music Maker is as far back as you're willing to share or as far back as you can remember. And that is, what is your earliest artistic memory as a composer?
Oh, I mean, I had made an attempt when I was like right after grad school, actually. I don't know. I had never felt compelled to compose, but I thought, oh, I feel like musicians should be making music. This is a language that we learn, but
Right.
we don't use it in this way. Not necessarily, unless we've committed to composing, but I just thought that it was an important thing to do as someone who's a musician, and then I just stopped because it was overwhelming, and, I'd started playing piano super young, and I already knew I was good at that, and, being a classical musician, there's the concept of craft and, like, really learning your craft, which is really important, and so I just thought it was too late. So that's my first my first memory of composing, and, like, yeah, maybe, like, a composition assignment in undergrad, but that wasn't creative? Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking with Mark Mellitz earlier this season on the podcast, and we were kind of lamenting the fact that composition isn't treated as integrated with, music theory. And I mean, sure, you might get like a part writing assignment or something, but I mean, it's always felt to me that like composition should just be like something that everyone does. And for whatever
Mhm.
reason, we kind of put it on a pedestal, unnecessarily so, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think you'll find, something similar with dance, like, not all dancers necessarily choreograph, and
Mm,
not necessarily everyone wants to, but you're right, it is, like it seems like this thing that is just so far out of reach unless I don't know. I have no idea how you even know, like, when you're
yeah,
young, I mean, I don't know.
sure. Yeah. What was that first piece like? I mean, it's interesting that it sounds like you kind of gave it a shot and then you were like, I'm not gonna do this, and then, of course, you've come back to it later, but
Mm,
was that
yeah.
what prompted that piece? I mean, do you feel like it was more aligned with, like, the music you were performing as a pianist, or were you trying new things in this music?
Well, okay, so before I started making my own music, I always had concepts in my head, like ideas for pieces, but I would collaborate with other people to make them. Other people who are already, determined composers, generative artists. And there was this collaboration that just wasn't really going well. And I think it wasn't their fault. I think that I really just had such a strong idea of what I wanted. And like, I finally just listened to I don't know like, I remember the moment sitting in LAX when I just found out that a friend had died, and I don't know what it was, I just said I turned to my husband and I said, "I have to make the piece.
Yeah.
I just need to do it, life's too short." So that became my first piece, and it was an interdisciplinary piece, I mean, it was composition, but there was also choreography in it.
So I know that you've spent a great deal of time as a pianist championing the work of composers and new music, but when was your first encounter with a composer when you started, like, really thinking about contemporary music?
It was a little after I'd started my music ensemble, the Nouveau Classical Project, rest in peace. I ended that in 2021. Basically, I was like, when you're in classical music, a lot of your teachers will be like, "Oh, no, screw contemporary music. No one knows how to write anymore." But I was like, "Yeah, but like, if this language isn't being used, then it's dead." So I wanted to go into it more, and I just started um, yeah, becoming interested in working with living composers. And actually, I think what launched that for me was Mata's open call.
Yeah.
It was called Interval. It was such a great program, and I used to collaborate with fashion designers. That's how I started my group, and so that was a concept I pitched, and it was called Amped Electrified. We would work with a fashion designer from Parsons. His name's Jonathan Cohen, and he's actually gone on to start his own line, and it's really amazing. And that was my first like collaboration with composers. I think yes. Even though I was dating one at the time who's now my husband,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think we weren't really working together that much. Yeah.
So I know you've had an interesting journey as a composer yourself, and I think a lot of our conversation will probably focus on that. So, but tell me about, like, you wrote this first piece, and like you said, you kind of stepped away from composing, and then you've returned to it now. I mean, this feels like probably a journey with unexpected twists. Can you kind of connect the dots of what happened in between the moments where you composed, stopped, and then started composing again?
It was just, I stopped, focused on the music ensemble and commissioning slash bossing around other composers. Let's be honest, because it's like I knew what I wanted. And then finally, just actually, okay, so the, a couple things happened at the same time. Aside from the friends passing away, actually, it's two friends who passed away. I was also part of a fellowship at Target Margin where the goal was to shake up your practice and question it. And my project, it's not even a project, you're not allowed to call it a project, but my investigation was weird ways of playing the piano, or different, it wasn't weird ways, but it was thinking of new ways to interact with my instrument. And again, right before that, I was working with a choreographer to do that, even though I had my own ideas of how to approach the instrument in a weird way. All of that coming together, life's too short, and this exploration for me, this deepening of interacting and approaching my instrument, it all just came together, and I think it really led to like make the damn thing, just do it.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
When you're talking about like unconventional approaches to the inside, well, to the piano itself, I'm imagining a lot of that is on the inside of the piano, and I'm familiar with a lot of those techniques that composers kind of turn to. I mean, do you feel like you were thinking beyond that even? I mean, what were those kind of experiments like?
Yeah, I think obviously I love George Crumb, my idol, and there's that, and it's inside, but it's also not just sitting at the bench. And I'm not done yet. Like I don't think I've even done everything I can. There's always new ways. It's not even just like a singular technique. There's one of my favorites is very physical, where it's a phrase that I use a lot. And it's inside, but it's also like even the position of your body to the piano,
Mm,
like I
yeah,
don't, it's not just sitting at the bench and then reaching in, like, because it's a huge instrument. You can walk around it. There's those little, and I'm not the first one to think of some things. I mean, I think that, there's some really unique things I've thought of, but yeah, like there's like the whole like back end of the piano. You have to get there. So you got to walk over there, and then what can happen on that journey to the end of, just things like that, like really getting physical with it, and not just thinking about being glued to that bench. And I'm not gonna lie, it is hard because this can get so cheesy so
right,
fast.
right, right.
And that's okay, sometimes it works, and it's good to know what you think is cheesy, and like you got to try it out. So that's really challenging, but yeah, it's about just feeling what makes sense, to you and your body, and like, yeah, doing something over and over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of topic of physicality, especially with the piano. I don't consider myself a pianist. I'll say that all day long. But I've written quite a bit of piano music that
Oh yeah.
it utilizes the inside of the piano. And what got me thinking about physicality as just a composer, as someone who doesn't perform at all, especially on this instrument, is I'm kind of like a giant. I'm 6'4", and so when I stand up and reach inside a piano and like touch the strings for harmonics, or sometimes I can like sit down and just like reach really far into it, and then I would like show that music to pianists, and they'd be like, this is a bit of a stretch
That's
for me.
amazing.
And it's like, oh yeah, not everyone has like the wingspan that I do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think this like, even if people don't think of physicality as central to their practice as maybe you do, it's still such a vital component. I think that is really overlooked a lot of times by composers. I mean, at least we don't like talk about that in school as when we study.
Yeah, and that, I mean, like, yeah, I get it. Like you're writing so that things can get played by many people sometimes, but also there are some things that are really unique to a person. And that's, yeah, I don't know. I think it's really, some of the best collaborations happen because things are are written specifically for someone's, abilities or just gifts. And like I don't do classical music anymore. Like I cannot play like like all those concert pianists, but there's stuff I can do that they can. And it's so hard to believe because that's what we think, like that's what we think. I mean, it is piano playing, obviously. It's amazing. Like, but there's more to that, or there's other things besides that. And so the way I describe it is I'm trying to create a new virtuosity, a new
Yeah.
sense of virtuosity that's not just on the keys, but it is very interdisciplinary in terms of keeping in mind the physicality. And it's not in a superficial way, not just like, oh, I'm doing this with my arm, but it's like, what is the result of the sound when you do that?
Well, I just, in reading your materials on your site, I love the way that you talk about your work growing out of this kind of long search for your own voice, starting from solely being a classical pianist. And I imagine that's someone, playing like the greatest hits of dead white guy music, right? And then this is like gradually evolved into a practice of making music and performances that integrate sound, movement, and unconventional approaches to the piano. We're already kind of talking about this, but was there like a specific moment when it all started to click, or did it feel like more like a slow unfolding? Like one day you woke up and you're like, oh, I'm doing all this stuff, you know, it's like kind of imperceptible almost.
I feel like a little bit of both. Like it's like an idea pops in my head, and then or it popped into my head, which was exploring the physicality of playing classical instruments. And you think it's like, oh, this is a project, right? Like a singular project, but it turns out to be a really, I don't want to say an obsession, but it's something that ended up being something I'm deeply interested in. But yeah, it came from one, just an interest, but also like always trying to, you know, I don't know, I'm not trying to like say that I'm trying to be the most unique person in the world or, be the most different, but it was partly that. It's like, what can I do that's really mine, you know? Or that not like in an ownership way, but that I feel like so creatively, connected to. Because I am also of the mind, I really do believe nothing is new under the sun. I truly believe that. Yeah, but at the same time, like there are things that we will find that really speak to us, on a deeper level than other things, right?
Right. Totally. What were those early efforts like? I mean, how has that kind of evolved over time?
It was really like I have an idea. Let me get someone who knows how to make things to collaborate on this. Even though I had ideas like of conceptually, oh, do it like this, or why don't we? Yeah, it was just a complete lack of confidence in my own ability. So it was always out like bringing in a collaborator.
Well, you've described yourself as a late bloomer, and at one point even said that you felt like you had no right to compose, which is, and that's like a pretty intense statement. It's like it feels like an unfair statement, but again, we've talked about how
Yeah.
people tend to put composers on a pedestal for some reason. I mean, what helped you move through that idea, and what does it feel like now to be on the other side of that hesitation?
I think that I'm fortunate to have supportive people around me. And I really think when you realize like that our time is limited on earth, like that will do it. I really think that was such a huge part of it. And then having someone next to me be like, yeah, do it. I'm not gonna let my husband is like so supportive. And he's always believed in me. And he's never told me not to do like, oh, you can't do that, even though he's a composer, but I would hide. I never, told him that that's what I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
the second I was like, "Yeah," he's like, "Yeah. Yeah, you should." And, and other friends who are very supportive. It was really helpful. I don't know. I think I'm also like just naturally I kind of have, even with all those hesitations, I tend to be someone who's just like I don't care what anyone thinks. Like sometimes it takes a while to get there, obviously, like with the composing, but for the most part I don't care. I mean, like, I got a lot of shit for the fashion classical music stuff, even when I was in college, I got for just the way I looked or dressed, and I would just stick to my guns. So I think that's always been in there,
Yeah.
and sometimes it just takes a little while for me to like remind myself of who I am.
I mean, do you consider yourself more a composer now or a pianist? I mean, where does that land for you at this point?
I think I am both. I just, played a like keyboard gig like last all of April and I'm working on a solo album that's piano, voice and electronics. It's been a while. I mean, I've been working on it since 2020, but that's I'm just trying to finish that. But yeah, I think it's all pretty equal because it's so inherent. It's just like such a intrinsic part of my practice as a music maker. I start everything at the piano, write it by hand.
Yeah.
It's very messy. Yeah, it gets a little disorganized, but yeah, it's just so tied to the way I make music.
What keeps coming to mind is a couple years ago I was at the Clarinet Fest, which is cooler than it sounds. But Susanna and I both had pieces performed, and so we were like, "Yeah, let's drive out to Denver and go." And it's like a big business expense, and we can hang out with some cool people. And I was sitting with another composer and a clarinetist who I won't name because it's a bit of a sensitive subject, maybe. But he was talking about this like accident that he was in, and how it's like changed his playing, and he looked at the both of us, and he's like, "I'd love to commission a composer to write this piece for me." And me and the other composer looked at each other, and we said, "That sounds like a piece you should write." Like, don't commission us, like, write that piece yourself. That's like powerful. It's a powerful story, and the clarinetist in question is like super new music clarinetist, so it's like, what this music does, and go for it, man. Like, don't ask us. I think that's really important. Again, it kind of gets back to this idea of like that maybe that should be a part of our education as musicians, is like feeling like we can compose, the same way if we take a like an English class in high school, we're reading stuff, we're writing stuff, we're coming up with original thought in a lot of cases. It's like we should do that as musicians too.
Yeah, and also the other thing I'll add is, that person that you spoke of, they sound like they're new to composing, right? It's also okay to collaborate on writing music. We don't do that. A lot of I think dancers do it more. I mean, sometimes it's problematic because they're not getting properly credited for choreographing. I'll be honest, that's not great. But
Sure.
I feel like there's not enough collaboration in music. It's always like single auteur, But yeah, sometimes the work we make. I mean, like I've never written an orchestra piece, but I can't believe like that someone. I mean, I guess they had someone to engrave it, but I'm like it's okay. Like maybe that person could collaborate with a composer too and co-compose it. Anyway, that's just what that made me think of when you mentioned them attempting this new thing. Yeah. I mean, at the same time, the other thing I tell people is that like I've essentially studied composition, even though I haven't studied composition, because playing all this rep is like it's score
Oh yeah.
study, even when you don't want to be. It's like
Right, right, right.
like I know this. But however, I have wondered if I should get composition lessons.
Yeah, I was talking with a composer who's also a pianist for the podcast recently, Beza Yazgan, and I didn't realize that she had only started composing like 2 years ago, and she said the same thing. She's like, maybe I need to take lessons, and I was like, maybe, but I didn't encounter my first composition lesson until I got to like late in my undergrad. But then I went on to study composition for my master's, and being able to there's something to be said for being able to have the space to like not have your quote unquote voice influenced. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is to that at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows?
So I fashion was something that I was a little bit interested to talk about, but of course, as I said at the top, you do so many different things that seem more current. But I'm interested in this, what you said about like getting flack for combining fashion and music, because something similar happened to me and Susanna when we were living in Tampa, and we had a contemporary music event series that paired music of living composers with like local chefs, local brewers, and
Yes, I know about that. Yeah.
yeah. And what was always weird to me was when we would tell like our classical music friends about it, like people who were, studying music in school or playing with the orchestras, they just like had no interest in what we were doing. They were like, "Yeah, I don't care about that. I don't want to talk about that." And it was like all the kind of, I guess, lay people who would come to the shows or just happened to be at like the bar we were popping up at that just absolutely loved everything we were doing and like started keeping up with our events and coming to repeat performances and stuff like that. So I mean, it's kind of strange to me like that's the case, but it sounds like you had a similar experience doing the events that you were like kind of the cross disciplinary events that you were doing.
Well, yeah, like some people were interested, and I mean, it was what I mean is it was just so gendered because, fashion is seen as this female or not even art form, but this like female or womanly interest. And I know there's like a lot of, I don't know, fashion can be really loaded because there's, some people have an impression of it like it's about being like about your body and showing off your body or, something like about pleasing men, and it's not. Like for a lot of us it has to do with agency and choice and just, yeah, it's an everyday art form, it's expression, and that's how I saw it. And so yeah, like when my New York Times article came out, for example, someone who I had mutual friends with like posted it on Facebook and said, "This is how you know the world is ending," things like that. like
Yeah.
like just and it's super annoying to have to try to explain myself all the time that way, and it's like you just kind of have to ignore it. And like, yeah, college, like I had a really what I thought was like a really cool outfit on. It wasn't like sexy or anything. I mean, and like it was just not traditional, and people they'd be like, "Is that appropriate?" So yeah, that's the kind of stuff. And I don't know. I actually wish I did a little more of the costuming fashion stuff because honestly, I think about it sometimes and I'm like, did they scare me off? Like, do I not do this as much anymore? Because like, I don't know. But I mean, I did it for the last NCP thing. Like, we commissioned someone. But yeah, you're right. Like, you notice it's not like such a big part of like, because I'm not a designer, but like, it's not, like, part of what I guess I do as much anymore, but, I mean, I'm gonna work with a costume designer for one of my, upcoming shows, but, yeah, it hasn't been, like, such a core part, but, honestly, I think that, like, in classical music now, it seems to be so much more normal to be able to express yourself that way,
Yeah.
right? I mean, partly, I think, due to Instagram, to be honest, people, like, it's just so prevalent to be taking pictures of your outfits for better or for worse, and I feel like there's much more personality now with the way people dress as classical musicians. And yeah, I mean, I would like to think that I contributed to that to that kind of idea. So I don't know, I guess it's like whatever I thought I was advocating for just seems to be normal now, which is okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
And to that point, I do think that like these kind of cross discipline events, like concert doesn't feel like the right word, or performance. Performance I guess is kind of closer, but I'll just call it like cross discipline events. They seem to be like becoming more often than not. That's how people present music anyway. And
Yeah.
so I do think that that's something that opens people up to the music, no matter what the music is, without having to worry about, quote unquote, dumbing down the music. I mean, that's how we always felt popping up at a bar, right? It's like, yeah, this is like pretty gnarly music, but we're in a relaxed environment and people can just like hang out and enjoy it or not.
Yeah. It's also just partly about getting, I mean, it's not just that, but it's really hard to get people to things in general, and it's not a gimmick, like, if it's really what you're interested in. It's like people have varied interests, that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, even though I think that at least I don't know, again, I think times have changed, like, I'm not that young, I'm not young, back in the day. Like, it was like, you need to be hyper focused on this. Like, you need to look like you are all about this, etc. And I don't think it's like that anymore. I'd hope not.
Absolutely. So when was the moment that you knew that you wanted to or could actually pursue, the composition side of your work? Often I say as a career, but it sounds like that you've only recently really started going after the composing stuff. So I guess interpret that question however you like.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I think that after running a group for so long, and I'm like, my group, I still have it as a nonprofit. I still have the nonprofit. I like, well, I know how to self produce, so, and fundraise. So if I need to do that, I can. And in the meantime, I'll go for like whatever fellowships and things like that. I don't know. I don't know if I ever knew. I think that when I started, I just knew I had to believe in myself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to, even though like I say that, and honestly, every other day, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Like, I do have so much self-doubt. I would be really disingenuous if I acted as if I just, but I think at the core though, like, you have to, like, you have to see. I've always lived like that, just trying to see like the future, and like the future that I want, and trying to just, okay, well, that, like, I see that, I'm going to just go in that direction. I know it's not going to be easy. And I just immediately started applying for things, actually. Like, I just tried. I guess that's the best answer. Like, I don't know if I knew, but I just tried.
And for what it's worth, I mean, this question of self-doubt, I mean, when you say that, I'm like, yeah, you're a real composer. I
Oh,
think
thank
we all
you.
I think we all experience like anytime someone's like super duper confident, not that, good for them, but anytime someone's like says like, "Oh, I don't know what it's like to," that it's like, "Are you human?"
No, I
Or,
know.
So
I
yeah, I
know.
I think that's like a universal experience for what it's worth. At least also being a composer and living with one myself. I mean, we have conversations often about the question of self-doubt in our work and how it shows up differently between us, and yeah, so I think that's a positive sign for some reason, I
For
think.
being a human, not
Exactly.
necessarily for being hyper successful, because I do think that sometimes, like, you just have to pretend that you don't have those feelings. I'm not kidding. Like, God, yeah. I think have a lot of our time is wasted on that self-doubt.
Tyler here, and if you're enjoying this episode of Music Maker, well, just know that I've got a short form show called Micro Maker. Think of it as a distilled version of these conversations focused on powerful insights that you can listen to anytime. New episodes twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. Give it a follow. So, shifting gears just a little bit, in your auto bio on your website, which by the way, I'm not sure what auto bio means, but I love that it was there.
This just
It's
means I wrote it. I don't know. I mean, I
Oh,
wrote
like an
everything.
autobiography. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So in your autobio, you talk about how the desire to express your perspective as a second generation Filipinx American was part of what led you to start composing. I mean, what did it mean to claim that space at that time, and how do you relate to those motivations now? Has it evolved in any way?
That's such a good question. Yes, it has for sure evolved. It's so weird, like, it's gonna sound super ignorant, but just to be like, "Oh my god, wait, like, where are there's, like, only, like a few Filipino composers I can name,
Right.
you know? Like, why aren't we here?" So, yeah, that was definitely a motivation, like, I need to be here, right? And it's how has it evolved? I think that that's still there, but it's like not all my work needs to be about that. I'm just trying not to think about all that stuff, and just trying to do my work and do the work that, like, really feels true to me, which, that did at the time. But, I don't know. I just felt like, wait, so is this the only thing I have to make work about? Yeah.
What has your work been like that's been influenced by this part of your identity?
Well, my first piece was about or not about, but it had to do with like fragmentation of identity. And I think that it just sneaks its way in, to be honest. I mean, I can't help being who I am
Right.
with how I grew up. And I grew up very, culturally Filipino American. Like I grew up around a ton of Filipinos. So that culturally things just make their way into my work, even if I'm not consciously making work about some aspect of, of like my heritage. That makes sense. But all my work is personal. I just, yeah, that's just how I like to start. It's all very personal, and very directly related to something I've experienced.
So you've also described your work as forging new creative pathways. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but has that idea taken on new meaning for you over time, especially now as you kind of return to and finish projects that have been with you for a while, like the album that you just mentioned?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do want to, create some sort of legacy that maybe influences other people, other future Filipinos to like be artists or to see themselves represented a certain way in this country and not just, in one stereotypical way. But it is a really particular thing to have this sort of, I don't know if the word is split, but to occupy this like diasporic space, you know? So yeah, I want to really like lay down this like yeah legacy and not be shy about it. And I have to say that because and I'm reminding myself because I tend to just be like, well, it's okay. I'm just gonna like live a quiet artistic life and be really humble. I'm just gonna do what I want to do. I'll just make it. And but it's like what, like take up the space. Like
Yeah.
try to be big. It's okay. Like yeah.
Have you ever been approached by other Filipino composers, like acknowledging this work that you're doing, or I mean, does that even matter to you? If you know,
Oh, I mean, I collaborate. Like, I don't. They're just. It's where there's a lot of us, but like, we've kind of been finding each other over the years. I mean, in terms of Filipino artists. So yeah, like I've been connecting. Actually, so I've lived in New York for like what for 23, gonna be 24 years this year, and I started connecting with more Filipino artists only in the last like 10 years, maybe less than 10 years. Like we're all finding each other and figuring out ways to support each other, you know.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and collaborate. I do collaborate with some people. Yeah.
So one of the questions that I ask everybody, and usually the answer has come up in some form by the time I get to asking this, but I'll ask you more directly. What would you describe as the primary pillars of your creative practice? So the things about your artistry that forms the foundation, whether that's philosophically or stylistically, aesthetically, anything like that.
I would say, well, like in terms of just like I guess materials discipline, it would be sound and movement, definitely. And then philosophically, I think always a there's always a pushing back of structure and form for better or for worse because sometimes I mean I notice the chaos in my work. It can be a little chaotic, but I also want to really run with it if
Yeah.
that's where I am because there's also like sense in that chaos. I know it. I know there is. So I think that's one way is just questioning like how the structures that build a piece, like how they're formed. So I don't usually follow like, a form like sonata form or whatever. And I'd say a lot of color, that's another thing that I know I really like. And trying to see how kind of cacophonous sounds can coexist with like, I mean, what does that even mean? But like, very like pretty tonal things.
Right, right.
Also like being okay with music that's emotional and even within all of that, like still claiming the style of experimental. Like I think it's so funny, like experimental, I think often means like It just implies a certain edge, and by certain I mean one way of being edgy that I just do not agree with or subscribe to. That makes sense. Because I do experiment. And like I know that's a very particular like, oh, like you're in new music kind of idea. But yeah, it's like, yep, that's where I live. I'm in New York where there's this like certain like sceney vibe to experimental music that I don't really feel like I'm a part of, and whatever, like I don't care if, if I'm yeah, people see me that way, but that's how I see myself,
Sure, yeah.
Or do I care because I just said all that? Who knows? We all care a little bit. That's okay.
Right, right. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, like I kind of feel you on the experimental stuff because I think like you can do something with a work that, not you specifically, but like general you, a composer can do something that is on the surface, it might be tonal, it might be pretty conventional sounding, but because that individual did it in a particular way, it could be experimental. It doesn't have to be a specific sound. And I've actually gotten away from like thinking about, is the music experimental or not, in favor of thinking like seeing my role as almost like a researcher. And
Mm,
so, what can I do a little bit with this piece that, yeah, like I'm probably not reinventing the wheel, but I'm doing it like in a way that's uniquely mine. And hopefully that contributes to the overall art form in some way, because
yeah.
I, chose to just kind of pursue this little idea in some way, which I feel is more it's more gratifying, but also yeah, it's like less like uh, loaded, I guess, with that kind of experimental that you're talking about, that edge.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, screw it. Like screw being experimental. Like we're just trying. Is that a thing? Can we call it music that's trying? Like I don't know. Yeah, I like that a lot actually. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to dig into this like idea of yours about sound in the body, being central to your practice. And you describe these elements not just as mediums, but almost as like living forces. And you also mentioned to me before we met today how your background as a volleyball player shows up in your physical relationship to the piano. And I don't know if you wanted me to bring this up or not, but I always love talking about sports and music because so many people in our orbit like kind of see them as like incompatible. But it's like, yeah, I can like we can like sports and new music, classical music, whatever. So at any rate, for you, how does sound and the body guide your creative process from like from the very beginning of a piece even?
Well, sometimes it doesn't. I'll say that, but a lot of the times I think it really weighs when I'm doing more extended techniques. But actually even that's not entirely true. Like when I was trying to fix my technique in college, so much of it came because of volleyball. When you're playing a sport, you're so connected to your body in a certain way, like dancing. So that's how volleyball played a role in, I guess, my learning, more about like technique and stuff. But I think it shows up a lot actually in my dancing and my
Mm,
choreography.
yeah,
A lot of like falls and dives and jumps. Like I still have hops. Like I could still do that. I could still jump really high. But even like I'm like you, I have like the long wingspan for, especially for my height. And so there's a lot of that like reaching, and actually the sound, like the a lot of what I write is so like kind of like sudden, like the way I have to show you, but I can't. I wish I could verbalize it, but like Corey from like ETHEL was like, your music's like it's like kind
yeah,
of,
like kind of twitchy.
yeah, twitchy, and it's because like you have to react like when you're digging, it's like
Yeah.
oh, get it, and like yeah. So I think it that comes through, like the rhythm of playing the sport comes through,
Yeah.
and then the change in like level, of the torso,
Mm,
the
yeah.
up and down. I think gets in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about piano, but obviously you compose music for other instruments. You just mentioned ETHEL string quartet, right? And I know you have a great piece that you wrote for Jennifer Coe during the pandemic. And so, yeah, I was wondering like how does this translate to instruments that you don't necessarily play? But it sounds like it's almost like you create a music that performers almost have to like react to rather than, I mean, I guess we're always, if reacting in some way, but like a very reflexive kind of motion to it.
Yeah. Oh man, that's such a great observation. Yeah, like with the Jennifer Coe piece, a lot of it was and you have to really do it with your whole body or else it doesn't come through. And it's funny, actually, sometimes I take like the physicality of like my fingers or like how I play onto their instrument in some way. And I didn't realize how particular it was. Like like doing this on the violin, like it's like yeah, it was like very particular to me actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it does get in there, and like I like to play with like breath a lot, because when you breathe a certain way, your body moves a certain way, right? Like if you take a really deep breath and then you exhale it. So then just things like that I'll play with, and then it's like how does that move your arm? Like if you hold your bow arm still, but you're breathing a certain way, like your whole torso goes up and down, and like what's this resulting sound of that? If that makes sense.
Yeah, again, like I don't play a lot of instruments at all anymore. But for better or for worse, I was a brass player, which is like you just move your fingers. So for me, I love writing for piano and I love writing for strings because there is like that physicality that you have to think about, and I'm often, you know, even though I have no idea how to play a violin, I mean, technically I understand how it works, but I'm always like air playing when I'm composing. If
Mm.
I have my piano here at my desk or keyboard, and I'll sometimes be like, okay, what if I do like a hand crossing thing, and I'm always like playing around with that stuff. And it's like so important. It's a little thing, but I feel like it makes a huge difference in like the result that comes to life when it's actually performed.
Oh, it makes a huge difference. I think you can sometimes, I mean, you can tell when someone only writes on their computer, and it's okay, like, to not know everything about an instrument, but you'd be surprised, if you could get a hold of one or borrow and like just what you'll come up with, even as not, as someone who doesn't play that instrument, right? And yeah, it can be really interesting and cool.
Yeah, my friend Sean, who I've had on the podcast, he's a killer drummer, and he does this like really compelling drum and electronic stuff where he's improvising with his computer basically. And he got commissioned recently to. I hope it's okay that I share this story, Sean. If you're listening, forgive me or not. Sean got commissioned recently to. He's writing a solo cello piece right now, and he told me that he like rented a student model cello to learn how to do it, and then he like recorded a clip and shared it with me, and I'm listening to it and it sounds just like he's playing drums. Like I would never believe it was a cello. And it's like, yeah, getting his hands on an instrument is resulting in like it's still music that sounds like just like the music he makes when he plays drums. And that's a really fascinating thing to me as someone who doesn't perform very often, if at all.
That's so cool. I want to hear that piece.
Yeah,
That sounds
it's
amazing.
yeah, I will make sure that he shares it far and wide. So, I mean, kind of sticking with this topic of movement, you've described your work as having germinated from a kinesthetic and improvisatory place, and I really think that shows, especially in projects that do incorporate dance and choreography and physical gesture. I mean, has your relationship to movement changed how you think about time, or even like the music itself, maybe?
I think that it's more elastic for sure. And I was already kind of thinking that way even before I was choreographing. Like sometimes I want to go back to some of my old ideas, like when I was just starting, because I'm like, oh right, I was really like not afraid. And it's weird how the longer you do something, like sometimes the more like constricted you are. But anyway, like yeah, it's like it's not like there isn't any rhythm, but it's like how do I put it? Like when there is a phrase, it's not just like 1, 2, 3. For me, it's like a chain. Like I guess you could, if you were gonna do it in music terms, like there's a lot of little. like meters within it, if that makes
Mm.
sense. And it stretches, and then yeah, sometimes, and then I have to figure it out after because like there's often music with it, and I'm like, oh crap, like
Yeah.
gotta make that work together, you know.
What normally comes first? Do you normally, I mean, I know that sounds like a silly question, but I've had my own experience writing for choreography, which I'll explain in a second, but I'm curious, like what comes first in that process when you're doing both?
So it just depends sometimes, and sometimes like I've done them both in real time, in quick succession maybe. I don't know. I just don't think like the brain really multitasks in that way, or at least not mine. But no, but sometimes I mean, my director like I did something in the room, and they were like, "Whoa, you just like it's weird. It's crazy watching you compose in real time." And I'm like, "Oh right, I guess that did happen." Like it was duet with like violin and dancer, where they were like, there's a lot of heavy interaction, and like the dancer like wrapped around and also playing the violin and moving so sometimes that happens, but mm, I would say, like, more often than not, it is, like, one after the other, but very, like, close together,
Yeah.
you know?
I ask because I've had an opportunity to score choreography in the past. I was in grad school still, and it hasn't really come up recently, which is kind of too bad. But I kind of I say score choreography because one of the dance students at where I went to school, University of South Florida, like she asked me to compose music for her like senior thesis choreography project, and for whatever reason she like went ahead and she had to do the choreography before I even had a chance to write the music. And so it ended up being this kind of reverse situation where she would send me video clips and it would be like I was scoring a film, almost like I was watching. And so like I didn't understand how she approached time through that, but it made me think about the um the movement as gestures and transforming that into musical gestures that fit. And it was a very rewarding process that I haven't been able to like emulate, but yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, sometimes the movement does come first, and I've done that with my own work where I've watched it back and had to score it like a film. But I know, and then sometimes it just goes the other way around, right? You could hand over a piece of music and be like, "See if this inspires anything," you know?
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
So there's a line in your artist statement that really has stayed with me, and it's about creating from both a sense of duty as a future ancestor, which we kind of touched on earlier, but then also like the naivety of art for art's sake. So how do those forces coexist in your work?
Oh, I just, maybe sometime like, probably not often at the same time. Like, that's more of a I don't know. My artist statement, they need some work, but, it's like I know, it's like I actually have another one, but, it's I don't know, it's like I feel like I don't know, artist statements are weird. It's like you have to justify it's a justification of why you're doing what you're doing, and, like, that was my way of just being like, "Yeah, I'm saying it." Sometimes I'll just do stuff because I freaking feel like it, and, honestly, sometimes that stuff what do I mean by stuff? Like, not necessarily superficial, but the things that aren't about some weighty issue is
Mm,
what really ends up speaking to someone or moving them emotionally, right? And so, like, it was like my way of just putting it in an artist statement and claiming it justified that idea. Like, it's okay to just make stuff,
right, right.
and it's I mean, I guess it exists in my piano music, that I'm working on for my album. Like, yeah, it's meaningful, and also it's not necessarily about I mean, like, I'll be frank, like, so much of like, I feel like I constantly or maybe this is in my own head, like, no one's asking me to, but like I have to respond to what people expect from art right now, right? And like I don't know. I think that's I guess that's what that is. It's like, listen, like sometimes I just I just want to make stuff without having to think about why
Yeah.
and know that it's going to connect with someone.
This is shifting gears quite a bit. Is there a piece of music, a film, a book, or a piece of art, any kind of artistic artifact, or even like an experience that has fundamentally shifted the way that you think about your own work, or even like changed your life in some way?
Oh, like I'm constantly like seeing such great work, but like I mean one of the first things honestly was Einstein on the Beach.
Mm, yeah.
I loved that work, and that actually, like, influenced me first before I discovered Meredith Monk's work. I was really late to discovering her work, and, like, I think because of the movement, people are like, "Oh, yeah, it's like you're clearly influenced by Meredith Monk," and the voice stuff, and, like, yeah, I see that, but, Einstein was the first, like, really big multidisciplinary thing I ever saw, so I think that put me on this path of like, whoa, how can you reimagine genre and form?
Or even like the just the experience of whatever it is we're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, on that note, you've collaborated across so many disciplines. I mean, we've touched on fashion, dance, of course, theater, film. I mean, what have these collaborations and what is going for that kind of elevated experience that you just described? I mean, what has that taught you about your own instincts or artistic boundaries?
Honestly, I think too small. I do. Like having like been producing like on like the self-production end for so long, like I realize that I have a tendency to like limit like to think logistics first or
Yeah,
whatever. And
yeah.
like I'm trying not to do that. And again, I have seen other works like that, like, over the years, and, like, you do realize, like, nothing is new, and, like, I don't know if, you know, I think a lot of us as artists have this problem where you're always trying to think of, like, new, innovative, and but I it always just comes back to, like, what is meaningful right now? What's really meaningful?
I think it's interesting you talking about like not going for it enough because I've experienced that recently in some of my work. I mean, do you feel like other people that you're working with push you to like, go even further with your ideas, or do you feel like that those are like conclusions that you have to come to on your own?
Mm, like, no, I think that, I think that's why it's so good to collaborate, like, you need people around you to encourage you and push you. I mentioned them a while back, my director, Man Teo, my director for my piece Antonym, is just awesome and, like, tells me what there could be more of and in the work, and I don't know, just having people around you that, like, really see what you're doing, I think helps you not to limit your own vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. For me, and I know people who listen to the podcast will be sick of hearing me talk about this,
Uh,
but I finished a piece for solo piano actually a couple months ago, and it's a piece that I spent like way too long on, like 3 years, and I'm very glad to finally be done with it. But I tried a lot of new things, and I came to some new conclusions for myself in terms of like notation and the way time in the piece is treated, and Unmiko is a pianist who I've worked with a ton, especially on my orchard music. And so of course, like she's the first person I sent this music to. And I'm kind of asking like, is this music possible on piano? Like I'm doing stuff that I'm not sure is physically ideal. Like, can you comment on that? And basically what it came to is she's like, yeah, that's all fine. But have you thought about like going even further into like she's like, I think you can be more adventurous with the notation. I think you can like think more outside the box with how you are presenting these ideas. And part of me was like very frustrated because I felt like, oh, I finally finished this piece. And then she was like, what if you did this instead? And I'm like, ah, damn it, she's right. Then I have to like go figure out how to notate that or present it in a way. But on the other hand, like to your point, I mean, that is what I think, I felt really good about the piece. And then she gave me all that feedback. And now it's like, I feel like it's arrived at the best possible version of what it can be. And it's like something that's more special than just like, oh, I wrote this piano piece and, I try new things. Now it's like an experience, I think, for anyone who will play it or listen to it, which wouldn't have been the case if I had limited my own ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And sometimes you don't even notice it. You need someone to tell you. And also, like, in terms of, like, largesse, that's what I am also thinking about. Like, I tend to, like, and I think that's also tied up in, like, obviously, like, funding support, so
Right,
I think
right.
we all sometimes we tend to do that, but sometimes, like, yeah, I notice just some artists just, like, are, like, thinking really big and they have to have it, and even though they don't have the, whatever resources right now, and I'm like, "Yeah, we should always keep imagining that." And like figuring out how to make it happen. But I think, yeah, again, after self-producing for so long, like with Nouveau Classical, that was so much self-production, and I think it could have been better with more resources. Like I think I really like sometimes I think I inadvertently just stopped like thinking really big with
Yeah.
like my productions and stuff.
Do you feel like with more recent projects, I mean, you're talking about kind of being in that mindset of, okay, I want this to be big, but maybe because of resources, I'm not sure it can be. I mean, do you find like workarounds? Like, do you have to get creative in how you like fully express and go for these ideas that you have?
Right now, I think, like, just specifically, I think it's going okay because I took so much time to raise the money for,
Yeah,
one of my projects. So that's one thing is it might take time, but I mean, I don't know, I think with that, I don't feel like I've had to really compromise, in terms of what like, the way I see it. But I hope that's not because I already envisioned it so I guess I'm
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about the future because, like, I'm not really, for example, like, a very like, a sets kind of person, like but, sets and, like, stuff on stage, I guess, can do so much for the work, and so I'm just trying to think, like, okay, in the future, like, if I wanna dream of something huge, I'm gonna do that, but I think planning ahead really helps, and, like, what's frustrating is that things really take so many years to mount, like, when they're really big, and I think that's yeah, that's just really hard, for a lot of artists. So I don't know, I think just because I spent so much time planning and not like rushing like the mounting of the thing, I was able
yeah.
to like get what I need.
If you really want to stay connected to what I'm building here, the best way isn't social media, actually. It's the newsletter. That's where I share new episodes, unfiltered thoughts about the creative process, ways to support the work, and whatever's coming next. You can sign up at looseleaftransmissions.com or through the link in the show notes. With everything that you've built, you've your keyboard duo, you have these visual scores, you have dance performances. I mean, what feels most urgent or alive in your practice right now?
Finishing my work, just finishing it, finishing the two big things, the album, Antonym, and then also just like getting like honestly getting better at dancing. Like my
Yeah.
posture, I watched like an open rehearsal and my posture was horrible. And so like also having time to actually practice because like I'm not just like a make like a generative artist. I perform the stuff, right? So I actually have to be like good at doing the stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's also really urgent, like making sure there's time to, keep practicing piano, keep practicing movement consistently, dance really, yeah. And I mean I'm a parent on top of that, so I have a 4-year-old and being really present for my 4-year-old too.
something that I wasn't sure whether or not to ask you about, but I'll go for it. A few years ago, you had put out this article, and I Care If You Listen, about quitting social media,
Yeah.
and I remember reading it. I mean, even just seeing the title, and one being like, "Oh, I totally relate to this," and two thinking, "I wish I felt like I could do this too." so,
Yeah.
I and the reason I was hesitant to bring it back up because I've seen that you're occasionally on Instagram sharing what you've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
going on and stuff like that, but probably not to the degree that maybe you were before. I mean, what has that experience been like, and what has what's become like what's been born out of that, like stepping away from the hellscape that is social media?
Yeah, I'm totally down to talk about that. So like I re-quit again, and I know like it looks like I'm active, but actually what I do is I go on because sometimes people invite me to collaborate, and I want to
Oh
like,
yeah,
I want to like be helpful. So I'll be like, yes, and then I'll delete it
yep,
again.
cool. You getting that from me too. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I know people expect it, and like it's reassuring for them like mentally. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that, but I like quit again because I read that book, How to Break Up with Your Phone. And once you read the data about how much time you're spending on that and like what it's doing to our brains, it's horrifying. And I still think I'm on my phone too much because I like have to hit genius on spelling bee every day, and but what I realized was that like after I read that book was it's not just social media, it's like physically being on the phone.
mm,
And so I did really well at like not look of only like checking it like briefly every 2 hours for a while, and now I'm like not great, but I'm not terrible again. It's like there's always a reason I'm on it. I'm either reading an article, texting a friend back, or like playing a game for some downtime. But yeah, I could be doing better. But like I think when I left the first time, it was really good, and then I felt like I had to get back on to promote an album, and then like after reading that book, I'm like, I haven't really gained much from being back on this, and like the kind of quote unquote work I've gotten from it like has actually been kind of shitty. Like it's like the most superficial thing or like project that like, oh, I really could have done without that because it's on Instagram, like
right.
how great can it be if people don't know will not email you? Um, and so it's been really great. I'm just happy doing my newsletter. I don't feel like I'm like missing out on anything, you know, like on like any attention or yeah, I don't miss it.
Yeah, and I think the articles, it was something like, "Am I going to kill my career by logging off of social media?" And clearly that didn't happen. And so I think that gives the rest of us who feel inclined to do the same thing some hope. But I was talking to, you know, social media has become so much of a marketing tool where there's like expectations now with my job to produce stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm in radio for a reason, first of all, but
Yeah.
I don't want to be on screen. But this idea that like follower count or even engagement count equals like real world results is, I'm sure that having left Instagram or whatever, you totally know what I'm talking about, where I feel like it's such an uphill battle against the algorithm that if even the thing that like I'm most excited about as an artist or as a producer of some kind, if I put it out on social media, it's like I can't even get people who care about me, just as a person to engage with this stuff. It's like, let alone like, is this going to translate to sheet music sales or performances? Like, it's not. it's
No.
like, it's like I sometimes like my mom isn't even shown like the work that I do, So it's like I don't want to pay Facebook to do that. It's so yeah, it's like a mess, right?
Yeah, and it's also like hit its breaking point. It peaked, right? And I think even businesses are starting to see that. Like, yeah, this is really a bunch of BS. But it's just a different time, honestly. I mean, sadly, we're all kind of it's just a different it's just not working and everyone's attention split. We've got so many problems we're dealing with everyone's brains and attention. Like they can't even like you can't even hold their attention. Like even if they see your little like, oh, there's Tyler. Like, are they gonna click to go? You know, it doesn't even matter. Like email really is the best way, and like yeah, you could post, and that'll be a way to remind them, and then they'll see the email. But again, like the reason I don't even do it is because it's I'm weighing the benefits and the costs. Like I really don't want my attention taken away.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's also because my kid is now 4 and a little older, but I've read more books this year than I have in
Mm.
in a really long time. I think I read so much now, and I know it's partly because I'm not on my phone as much. Like I don't do it on the very occasionally I'll like take it out on the train, but I'll have a book with me usually. I definitely don't look at it while I'm walking down the street, but yeah, it just doesn't really work. And my newsletter has like 60 to 70% open rate, which is so much better than, you know, whatever eyeballs are on Instagram or seeing my stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've been seeing a lot of like stuff about the quote unquote attention economy lately, which feels like such a dystopian concept. But
It
that's what it's
is.
become, right? It's like, I don't know, I open up my Facebook feed and it's like mostly stuff that is like, I didn't sign up for any of this. Like, these aren't my friends. It's like the stuff that, I care about's like not even popping up. So, yeah, I've long considered for like the past year at least starting a newsletter for the reasons you're talking about. So I might have to hit you up
Oh, you don't
and
have one
for
yet?
advice.
Excuse you. You better
Oh yeah, right.
get on that.
My podcast has a newsletter,
Oh,
which, like as you
you
said, it
go.
has like a 60 to 70% open rate, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, yeah, this is probably a healthier way to share what I have going on and have people that care about it like actually see it.
Yeah. And also, what was I gonna say? I think being on yeah, being on Instagram or social media, it's like it takes away your attention, and I'm pretty sure it's making everyone's work worse. Like everything looks the same, sounds the same. Like I'd rather not have a ton of attention and make good work. And someone can say like, yeah, well, what a privileged thing to say. Like, honey, none of us are making money purely off of our art. We've all got a job of
Right.
some sort.
Yep.
Okay. So like like whatever. It's not a privileged thing to say. Like we all work. I'd rather make really good work than be like sucked into this stupid app.
Yeah. Amen. So you mentioned this, you're a mom, you have a 4-year-old, and before we met up today, you told me that you've been thinking a lot about motherhood lately, not necessarily as a topic for new work, but just letting the experience settle. And I think you are the third, like third mom I've talked to. Lately, yeah, for the podcast. So, this is always something that's, if you're up for talking about it,
Hell
it's
yeah.
kind of an exciting thing. I mean, how has becoming a parent affected your creative life, like even beyond what shows up in the work itself?
Yeah. I mean, you have to be really structured.
Yeah,
I still I would like to say like, oh, I am more discerning with my time. I am to a degree, but also I'm still kind of stupid about I don't know. Like I still have that like hustle in me, but no, I just have to be more structured about my time. I don't get to work on the weekends anymore. And unless like I've got a desperate deadline, then I will work. And I'm not sure like how it's affected like how it's affected the way I make work, specifically. But sometimes little things sneak into my work that have not frequently, but I'll see them do something like, and I'll choreograph it into the work. But I don't know. I mean, I'm probably eventually going to make work about it because it's so personal in what I'm experiencing, and there's not enough work about motherhood, to be honest.
right.
Like it, we need to do it. So right now, I guess in terms of that, I'm mostly reading. I'm in like a research kind of phase, and at first, I really didn't want to even make anything. Like I was just like, absolutely not, never. But I think it's going to happen. I think it's inevitable. But it's mostly about the structure, and I think I've gotten some perspective, some healthier perspective on life and career. I say some because I still think I am that like crazy ambitious artist that is like I need to do like XYZ and everything. But still I think it's a little healthier. Yeah.
I mean, your child, both parents are composer. Your husband's also a composer. I mean,
Mm.
does there seem to be sort of any sort of interest there,
Oh god.
or
Not really.
acknowledgement even, or
I mean, his favorite band is Toto. Like we
yeah,
listen to that entire album like every other day. But I don't. I mean, not particularly. There hasn't been some aha, you're gonna be a music maker, or anything like that. So I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, I do want to get him piano lessons, but he can't take from me because he won't listen. Yeah, we're not. We're trying not to just. We're not being pushy about it, but we do want him to like have some sort of art form. I mean, I secretly dream of being a dance mom, but, but we'll see.
yeah. Susanna and I are not quite there yet, but we always joke around because I'm tall and she's pretty tall. I think she's like 5'9" or 5'10", and so it's like, okay, let's get that D1
Yeah,
baby. So
yeah, and I
whenever
want him to play volleyball.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, kids should play sports, and
yeah,
regardless, it's so good for their self esteem.
yeah. So getting into my final series of questions, and these are questions that I ask everybody, and it's always like a good time to see how like everyone responds. So starting with, what do you think you'd be doing artistically or otherwise if it weren't composing? And I'll also group in like choreographing. Just if it was something totally different from what you do now.
But artistic or not,
Maybe not.
not. Well, oh God, what would I be doing? I think. I mean, I was gonna go to law school after. That was my original plan, so maybe I would have been a lawyer. I mean, the other thing I could see is being a writer, but that's artistic. Uh, I don't know. I think, or maybe something somewhat creative like advertising,
Yeah.
marketing. I don't know. It's really, or like if I had to completely not be an artist, I'd probably get, I mean, like if that job even will exist soon, but I could work in development, because I have a lot of experience grant writing. But yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to imagine actually what I would do. Maybe I would have been working in fashion in some way. I think that would have been fashion or events or something.
Yeah, I always feel like the answers people give are like still somewhat adjacent to like
Hmm.
the experience. I did a solo show, and my answer to that question was like something with spreadsheets because I love organizing in spreadsheets. It's like it
Yeah.
just like satisfies some part of my brain, and I do that anyway. And it's like I guess I'd do that for a living if I could. If I couldn't do this,
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, spreadsheets.
yeah. I think you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'll ask you more directly. What are you trying to get better at in your creative life right now?
Composing. um, get better at. Uh, yeah, I want to be much better dancer. I'm not trained. I'm not formally trained. Yeah, I just want to get better at all of it, at everything I'm doing now. I want to. I don't know what that means necessarily. I think on the most basic level, I guess like technique, or I've never written an orchestra piece, for example, like doing something like that. I guess I wish I could work at night. I wish I had the energy for
Mm,
that.
yeah,
And
I feel
sometimes
that.
I do. Oh, good. And you're not a parent. Okay, great. I don't feel bad anymore because that's part of it. It's like I'm done after as soon as I do pick up from school. I'm done. I can't. My brain just doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, it's like after 4 p.m.,
Yeah.
I'm also cooked. And I was talking to a composer once, and I was like, oh, they asked me, when do you find time to compose? And I was like, oh, if I can. I love waking up early and doing it. And that was like a revelation. It's like, oh, what? You don't stay up late? It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's like I need to do it in the morning.
Yeah. So yeah, working and I'm starting to apply to residencies again. So I know that when I do those things, I can do it
Yeah,
because you
right.
have so much space, right? Empty space. It's social, but not so social. Um, yeah, that's something I wish I could just work longer.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree and feel that. Is there a tool that you use in your creative practice that you think everyone should know about and everyone could maybe benefit from? And it could be like a physical object, it could be a process, it could, it could be a software. It
hmm
doesn't have to, you know, just anything that helps you get things done.
Yeah. Oh, my planners. I gave a planner workshop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's not even all projects, but it's just good for life but and projects and you need a couple, not just so there's one I have for my schedule specifically, and then another one that's specifically for like for to-dos and things. I think I need to get this again, but I used to have a pad that was just a daily pad that
Mm,
was really helpful. And then another one that I maintain is like a goals planner. And you write your affirmations in there, your goals for the whole week, your to-dos, because goals and to-dos are different. Like a goal might be like I want to like practice this thing like every single day for X amount of minutes, whatever. And then like you need a list of wins for the week too to boost your
yep.
self-esteem. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm project planning, like I need to see all my projects on one page. Like I have a pad that has like everything I have going on and like things that need to happen for each of those things.
Yeah, I again, like this, you're speaking my language, and any chance I get, I evangelize about my planner slash notebook. I have a traveler's notebook. I don't know if you're
Oh, of
familiar with
course.
this
I know
brand.
every brand. I know every brand. I buy those in passport size because they fit in a purse.
Yeah, I love the modularity of it, and we
Mhm.
went to Japan. We went to Japan earlier this year in January, and it was like a pilgrimage. I went to every traveler's notebook shop. It's like there's one in Kyoto, there's like the
Oh.
flagship store, there's one in Tokyo
I didn't
Station,
know they had their own stores.
and then there's one in Narita Airport, which is where we flew out from, and it was like a huge hassle. Like the day we left, I'm like, I gotta go, and it's like in a different terminal, and I'm like, I gotta go to all of them.
That's so
It's
great.
like
Do you use them for planning?
yeah, I have a weekly planner that's important to me. I on Etsy, I found someone who made a traveler's notebook sized, and I think they do variable sizes too, actually. But it's like a sheet music notebook that I
Oh,
have in mind, so
nice.
I can like write on staff paper, and then and what else do I have in here? Yeah, just like a regular notebook, I can jot down ideas. Usually, if it's like a big, long term kind of thing that I'm working on, I tend to use like spreadsheets and stuff, like digital
Yeah,
tools. But
yeah.
super vital for me to like survive a week or even a day to be able to like actually physically check things off. And yeah, I I'm with you.
That's cool. You're like one of the only dudes I know that maintains like a paper, you know,
Mm,
notebook planner.
yeah.
Yeah. And I also have like a bunch of stickers. It's like inside it looks like it looks like like a teen girl's like dream like
Yeah.
planner. And you need stuff that is fun like that to like bring about some optimism. So that's another thing I'd recommend is make sure you have like markers and stickers for in there. Oh.
Yeah, mine's not quite that colorful. But yeah, it's like I've probably kept a paper planner in some form since grad school because that was when I realized this is what I have to do to keep myself from staying awake in bed at night, like trying to figure out what to do the next day. It's like if I just write it down for the whole week, I can actually sleep.
It's good for
And
your
I've done it,
memory too.
and I've done it for like 10 years, or however long it's been. I think
Wow.
a little longer. So well, my final question is what is something that you've never had the chance to say about your work, but that you've always wanted to share?
Oh gosh. Oh well, I'll say actually some I don't really write it on my website actually, but I don't do like um you know I don't really do calls for scores or anything like that where I'm writing for some ensemble that I don't really know.
Yeah.
And I know that's a normal practice. for composers, but I just like I really need to write for specific people. And actually, the thing that really that really like made that clear for me that that's how I want to work is when I met up with John Zorn, like, oh God, I think it was like almost a decade ago. It's funny, like we were talking to him about potentially commissioning a piece, and then we just like, like he talked about his process, and I was just like, that's dope. Like he's like, I've known people for 10, 20, 30 years and I write for them. I write for specific people. And I was like, yeah. Like he's not like, oh, I just need to like get my work to whoever, like, which is how we're taught, like, which makes sense, right? Put yourself out there because you need, but it's just not worthwhile for me, I don't think. And I know like duplication is so important a lot of the time for these scores, and like, but for me it's not. It's like that's made for that person and how they play, and part of the process is me telling them exactly what I want, and then I'll adjust the score to reflect that later or whatever. But yeah, that like really made such a difference for me. So I really admire him. I love how he works, and that's something I don't write on my website. Like I don't really want to work with people that I like. I mean, which isn't to say I wouldn't, but it's like I need to feel really like we need to have a conversation. We need to feel like see if we're really artistically aligned. If the vibe's there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I've said it before on the podcast, but I used to be in this mentality where in order to feel success, I felt like success was like when people I didn't know started commissioning me,
Yeah.
which has like only happened a couple times. But usually I'm like writing music for my friends. And I thought like, well, I need to stop doing that. And like, I'd love to write for this big name ensemble or chamber group or whatever, and get commissions from people I haven't out of the blue and stuff. And it's like that's slowly eroded to the same conclusion that you just described. It's like, no, like success is maintaining like long-term relationships with players who just champion my work. And if other people play it in addition to them, that's great. My sheet music's always there for other people, but otherwise it's like, yeah, this is what it's all about.
Yeah. And I've been on the commissioning end too, right? I've been on the commissioning end, and I just see like how joyless it can be for both people, for both parties. So no one's got time for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Sugar, this has been so awesome, and I hope we get a chance again sometime to sit down and talk shop. And with everything that you do, I'm sure that there's so much more to talk about. So until then, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This has been really fun.
So much gratitude to Sugar for joining me on today's Music Maker. I just loved hearing how she's building an embodied practice where different elements like sound, movements, also attention all come together, and how projects like Antonym are taking shape across disciplines and communities. You can learn more about Sugar's work and subscribe to her newsletter. Highly recommended. It's a great read every time it comes out. It's all in the links in the show notes. I'm Tyler Kline, and thanks as always for listening. Music Maker is a production of Loose Leaf Transmissions, made for all ears. Explore more episodes and find ways to support the work at musicmakerpodcast.com. And subscribe to the newsletter on the website as well. And if you're able to join us on Patreon, that's at patreon.com/looseleaftransmissions. Your support goes a long way in making all of these conversations possible. Thanks once more for listening, and I will catch you here again next time.